So, what's the date?
Who's that? Who's that?
Please mute him. We would request that you would mute your phones. Hello? Please mute your phones.
Just mute your microphone, period. Be done with it. Okay, Ms. Jones.
Okay. I'm sorry, the question was, were they aware that they're under the MO?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would imagine that they are. I would hope that the president of the COC would have conveyed that to their agencies. But I did, I had a meeting with the agencies, and I did state that if you are a part of the COC, that we wouldn't need to do a separate MOU.
Okay, for those folks who have not had any response one way or another, should they contact the office or should they contact the COC? What is that process?
Or who hasn't had a response? Who are referring to?
Campus community.
Is that Jashira Jones? Yes, I have had contact with her and I referred her over to our POC here. And so I guess they are working what they need to work out in order to get the information to us and so that they can start referring.
I have no other questions.
Connie, can you just talk about Monica Thomas? I know there was a request from Commissioner Anthony.
Who?
She was saying that you sent me an email saying that this lady was homeless and.
Oh, yeah, we've had a couple of folks asking how to access emergency vouchers if they're homeless.
They would have to go through the local shelters. So no one could come into our office and request a voucher. It's by referral only. So anyone who's interested or who is inquiring about the program, they have to reach out to their local shelter or the COC.
Those 13 ones that we required a letter from.
I'm sorry?
I said the 13 agencies that we required a letter from concerning homelessness, or are there more? We had a list presented to us at one time that those of you who are homeless, to get the emergency voucher, take it to these agencies so that you can use the homeless preference. So I'm saying is 13 agencies still valid, or are there more or less?
Well, whatever agency that falls up under that MOU is valid. Anyone else who is interested in becoming a referring agency, once we work out the MOU, then they would be valid. So unless another agency has taken the active steps to become a referring agency, we've just been processing what we have based on the information that we have.
So they couldn't go back to those 13 ones that we originally had as a homeless preference if they're not part of the COC?
No. Under this program, we have to have an MOU signed, a separate MOU signed for this particular program. And again, we do have.
Well, I'm asking if somebody walks in one of those 13 agencies and they're not part of it, can they get referred to the COC or any of the other agencies that we, because see, prior to the emergency vouchers, we had a homeless preference, okay? And we always told them to go get the homeless preference letter from 13 agencies. That was a list provided. So what I'm saying is, if they're still under that idea, and none of those 13 agencies are part of the COC, then they need to be referred to the COC.
Correct. Correct.
So that goes out the door for the.
Yeah, our homeless preference goes out the door. Yeah.
Okay.
Or are we doing it simultaneously? Are we doing emergency vouchers as well as the homeless preference?
We're doing both.
Okay.
Okay. Separate programs.
Right.
And each program requires separate,
Application.
correct.
I mean, I just want the public to understand that, because, you know, folks will call.
Yeah.
They will call, but, you know, to get an understanding is the reason why the questions are being asked. Any other questions? Appreciate you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Delaney,
He's-
finances.
Yeah. Because I have a couple of questions.
Where are we on the status of the RFP, financial services?
That's peculiar.
I know we had a couple questions from some potential bidders, and so
Mhm.
there was a list of questions, and I answered those, so I gave those back. So right now, we're just waiting for them to actually send us some proposals. So I actually answered the questions, and it should.
How many proposals do you have? Because I saw the deadline was the 16th if it hadn't already been moved.
Yeah, I
or
think
extended.
it's the 20, I think it's been moved to the 23rd. We had approximately, well, we hadn't gotten any proposals. We
Okay.
just had potential prospective bidders giving us a list of questions to answer. So that's where we are.
And the protective services for Elm Street, that's a procurement issue, I
Yeah, that's a
guess.
procurement issue
So,
too. But it deals with finance because the
Yeah.
contractual rate has to be signed, things have to be negotiated.
Have we settled on a protection service for Elm Street?
I will have to look into that, yeah.
As
And-
part.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback off that. In the event that nobody or one bids on it, some people want to call that a single, sole source, but that's not a sole source. That's not the definition of sole source. So just, be mindful that neither one of those two has ended.
Okay.
But if only one bids,
That's it.
my mindset is they play by the rules. They did everything that was asked of them, and we move forward.
A couple of questions on other administrative costs and details as of June 30th. There are several entries on here for consultant fees. One is at the tune of $25,000 for ACV. One is at the tune of $1,500 for Central and Stevens. And then we have one at Elm Street for $500. What are those consultant fees? And, yeah, Central, 1,500.
Okay, say that, I got my first, say that one more time.
ACV has consultant fees to the tune of $25,535.97.
Okay.
Central Stevens has consultant fees at $1,500. And Elm has consultant fees at $500. I'm trying to see if we have any other consultant fees that.
Yeah, you have some IT consulting fees.
NSP 2 has consultant fees of, I just need an explanation of why we have consultant fees. There's another one here on Sunset for $2,661.81. I understand consultant
Yeah.
fees.
I did a highlight of the ones that with the consultant fees that we have that are the big ticket items. For example, HCV, 18,000 is Gans and Gans. 4,600 is consulting Jackson Management Consulting. And so you said the Elm Street, the 500 is consulting for Jackson Management and Consulting. NSP, that's Audrey Plessy, she did a procurement review.
You know what?
Procurement review.
Of NSP two?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was spread around. She did a procurement review, but it was actually spread to all the different properties.
Why would she be doing a procurement?
Yeah, we have NSP
Audrey.
two. Only thing we can do with NSP two is bill.
But Audrey Prissy,
Yeah, I would have to look into that because that was.
yeah,
before
I mean,
me.
yeah, because I mean,
And what these folks procured,
and the reason we bring the procurement issues to the table, policies of procurement are
the board
said by the board.
responsibility.
So when we see stuff that catches our, I'm gonna ask questions about it.
Yeah,
That's all right.
were they procured?
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I'm seeing, I Ms. Jackson's contract was back in November,
Yeah, November.
so are we still paying for that? That's the assessment report.
Okay.
So, just trying to understand what these costs are.
Yeah.
And why was there an IT consultant fee?
I think, well, let me just say, I think it was when the emails went down.
Okay.
We needed some help, so we needed to give Kedrick some help on getting those back up and running. So, but I can look into that further, but that's my initial take on that.
I mean, what help was there? I'm trying to rationalize this.
That sounds,
You know, usually in IT, if a system goes down, I mean, you basically build it back up from the top, even with a virus. It just don't sound right. It doesn't sound right to me.
I noticed there's a fee over here for McVeigh firm for $3,472.50. So certainly, CAHC would like to see what that is and what it's for.
Okay. Tamara, do you know what that McVeigh
That was
firm
for
for?
the assistance with the taxes.
The what?
When we had to, they assisted you with.
No.
What you said?
Could we get?
That's that IRS situation?
Yeah, I would have, let me look
Yeah,
into
we have
that.
no clue what that is.
Yeah.
And what we've asked for is if it's a CAHC expense,
Charge.
that we need to review that charge. And we hadn't seen, we don't know what that is.
Let me ask you a question. As large as our accounts are, have we looked into doing business with other banks with all these bank fees?
Yes, Lord.
We have not looked into that. We can look into that.
I mean, what would that do?
Bank fees would kill us.
I mean, would,
Yes, sir, they are.
you gonna, I mean, so you're talking about looking for a cheaper,
Well, not only cheaper, but no fees.
Yes, sir. Because, are these checks that are returned?
These fees, woo.
'Cause we got
The analysis
one.
charge,
Yeah.
woo.
Yeah,
That's something I'll look into.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As well,
And since we, Mr. Delaney, since we get these reports prior to the meeting, if you would like for us to send these reports in, our questions about the reports in prior to the meeting, if that will assist in providing information back to the board, we can do
so
that.
that's fine.
Okay. 'Cause we
Either,
don't,
I mean, I don't mind either way,
Well-
after or before, you know.
those are my questions, on several of the items that I see that raise a flag with me, on the finances. Commissioner Peterson, did you have any questions on the finance report?
No, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Perfectly. I know that we don't have an IT contract. Has that been talked about, discussed? Because all we're doing right now is paying monthly maintenance fees.
Okay.
Yeah, the contract with Tinmaz has expired, which they were bought out by MRI. So right now, all we're doing is paying monthly maintenance fees.
That question has been asked for several months, if there's a bid, or if we have looked at
It
the
ain't
scope
even been
of work.
procured yet.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a scope of work analysis for that particular contract.
And see, would want to piggyback off of what you just said, dealing with all the changes that came down with Tinmaz. A lot of them before y'all got here, their system did not accommodate the changes that went through this agency.
Okay.
So when and if the specs do go out, that as part of the scope of work, that company has the ability to modify without any extremity, that's gonna be exorbitant to us. Because there was also a situation, with 10 Mass. That contract only covered 3 years' worth of data. We had a situation for someone who was older than 3 years. I think they'd been on Section 8 for about 8 years, that they had to go to the legacy system in order to get the data. And see, that's another point of contention with the specs that may go out. If there's active records, we still have to keep that data, okay? We still have to keep it. Even though it's on the legacy system, we still have to keep it because it's still in active use. And that's just part of the contract negotiation. And my feeling is, we're required under our data policy to retain 7 years worth of data. So I'm saying whoever it be, 10 Mass, MRI, whoever, our contract needs for them to keep 7 years worth of our data. And it's just 3 years, they got 3 years, we got it. That doesn't make sense.
Okay,
So, you know, that's my concern going forward.
okay. Duly noted.
Legal,
Well, let me ask one more question concerning those bank fees. Do they seem high to you? I mean, just in your professional opinion?
I would have to look into what the actual fees were for. They could be for a number of things. So I would just like to take a look at what the exact fees are for before I give you an answer to that.
So
but see, not only that, see, I know that there's some accounting
last month,
software
were
that,
they about the same last month?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a regular charge
that
every
we get,
month that we get?
it's recurring.
Yeah.
I know that there was some software that, Mr. Delaney had mentioned, but that, to me, that should be all part of, looking at the scope of not only IT hardware, but
yeah.
IT software as well. I know that's probably a package that you'd probably like to have. Me personally, I wish that we would've got Yardley the first time, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But I know that there's some financial software that you had mentioned previously, that you would, you know, like to see, like to handle that with our book. So going forward, you know, just keep that in mind.
Okay.
The only other thing I would like is, and we had asked for this before, is the list of the contract, our current contracts, begin date, end date, and amount, and that's all. Everything that we've got that's happening for next meeting.
Okay.
And those items that recur every month
Yes.
without a contract.
Yeah.
The evaluation process that is required by the CFR
Mhm.
has been lacking. I don't even think that it began until
December.
February. No, really, it didn't.
It
It
just
just
started.
started February. And as we talk about procurement, of course, the procurement policy is in review.
Yep, yes it is.
And I am going to still say to you, Mr. Lindsay, as a person that is doing that review, that our policies should mirror the CFR's
That is correct.
in their entirety.
In their entirety.
People who intend to follow the rules are gonna follow the rules whether they agree with them or not. People who don't intend to follow the rules
Ain't gonna
will
follow.
constantly ask for change.
Mm.
So, because there's no intent to follow the rules in the first place. So, most of our problems that we see coming out of CFR, out of the procurement department, has been primarily because lines of
Lack of-
HUD are not being followed. So again, I don't, you know, one of the things you had talked about was adopting only a portion of the CFR. We need to adopt the CFR
CFR,
in
and
its
that's-
entirety.
Ms. Peterson, you got any questions?
No, sir.
All right, ma'am. I think we've hit on procurement pretty well. Any of the development issues? Or do you want to say before the individuals? ITAC and,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Ms. Anthony then?
Nothing to report from the MHA. employment. I don't have anything, Brandy, do you?
No, I don't. Well, I guess I do. I just wanted to know, well, I guess, no, never mind, sorry.
All right.
Sorry, I know, we're in the middle of this, so it's just, that's probably gonna come out when they finish the investigation. That was my question.
Let the record reflect Commissioner Jackson is in attendance. You good. Anything else, Ms. Anthony? Commissioner, Ms. Peterson?
No.
My thing. Yes?
She said no,
She
sir.
said no, sir.
Oh, okay. My only concern and big topic is the kiosks. Where are we with those?
That was-
I would have to go back to you.
That's part of that CARES Act spending.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask a couple of technical questions about those kiosks.
We don't know yet.
But I'll send it through email. Brother Jackson, you walked in right on time.
I guess so. Got some issues, with my towers, concerning the, back door. We have elderly people that can't walk from where they park at in the back and all the way around the building. And now it's causing a problem with the parking in the front. Everybody's parking in the front, they doubling up handicap lines and stuff like that. And they refuse to, my recommendation was to have the door officially open, say like from 8 to 5. And then from that point on, have everybody badge in. And I don't know what the problem is they're gonna do. My next thing was, I was gonna try to contact somebody with Gorman and see if we could get the problem solved. Other than that, they have fully opened the building completely. Community rooms, exercise rooms, everything, all facilities are available now. And I believe it to be in all 3 towers. Other than that,
Are they requiring masks?
oh yeah, they keep that, that's a must. You have to have a mask while congregating in the building. Once you get in your unit, you're okay, but, they doing that, that's about it, that's all I can think of.
Let me ask you on that back door.
The back door is the entrance, like a lot of people who have their apartments on the south side, they park in the back. But now they can't park in the back, they're trying to park in the front because that door is locked.
Let me
They
ask
have to
you,
walk
does the
around.
front door have a badge entry?
Yeah,
Why couldn't they put one on that door?
the back door has one. And that's why I recommended that they would open, have the door open to that, like, say, 8 to 5 and during the day.
But I mean,
and then-
if it was a badge, all you
Right.
got to do is lock it, and
And
the
then that badge in.
badge releases it.
But, for some reason, I'm not getting no response.
And again, Commissioner Jackson, it continues to show that these things should be worked out with resident councils and management.
And
until-
I'm working on that as well, trying to form the grievance board. Like I said, you're supposed to, when you have the grievance board, the person that's in that building, their board does not recommend to be on the grievance board because of conflict of interest. It's basically the other 2 towers, which is Cumberland and Powell Towers, and we're working to form that in order for Mr.
Well, in talking to, and we can have that conversation when Gorman is on the line. One of the things is that they want to use their hearing officer using their procedure. And according to HUD, residents do have some input into grievance procedures and every other operation within the housing authority. My other question to you is, tenant rights and the grievance procedure posted in a public place in the building? Are they posted in a public
I
place in the
cannot
building?
tell you for sure it is or not, but I can make sure that it is.
Because what I'm finding, even in the latest situation that came up over there where we now have the city board of directors involved, we couldn't tell them whether or not that was there, and we did send it over to Gorman to begin to have some input. But there are certain things that should be posted in a very visible location that tends to talk about tenant rights and as well as what that grievance procedure is.
But see, not only that, see, we're under a court decree, okay? When we settle with, Belinda, and I can't think of the girl by his name, I have to go back and look it up. As part of the settlement, we assured them that hearing officers will be provided, and that the hearing officers will be from a third party. And I don't know if Gorman knows that or not, but I think it probably needs to be relayed to him. This person is your employee, which violates the spirit of that court decree because it's not impartial, and it's not independent, and it's not third party.
Last time I looked, under Weingarten, and you can help us with this, a person can bring into that grievance procedure whoever they choose to be there with them, and there can be no rejection of that by the hearing officer or in the procedure. They can bring whoever. So I can tell you in this situation, that individual is gonna bring the city board of directors.
Well, I also recommend that we are, at our building, because we're so used to having a physical bulletin board of all this, because right now, I think they're trying to do everything on the TV, and it's very limited, you know what I'm saying, to on TV, so.
Well,
I think
24 CFR 964 says that anything of that nature shall be in a public venue, public viaduct, whether
Should be
it's
in the
bulletin
hallway.
board or something. Just because you got it on TV,
No.
that doesn't meet the spirit of it.
Yeah, because everybody doesn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And we normally used to have our bulletin board as you come off the elevators there to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a good place. And then another place was just as you get off to the elevator to your left, against the wall. It was in plain view, everybody could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's the intent.
that's what we're trying to work on now. So, but other than that, we're still doing the games, the movie nights, stuff like that. But like I said, on a good note, the buildings are fully open.
Are people to meet anytime they want to?
Yeah, matter of fact, I talked to the president of our council, and we are getting ready to have a resident meeting with the residents come next Wednesday.
What is the status of the board liaison?
What's the one now?
Status of the board liaison, because we hadn't had one since Ms.
Well,
Nance, right?
well, the thing is, right now, they pretty much have nominated me as well because of the fact that I come here, but I didn't know if that was right or not.
Cannot hold two positions.
This was somebody from within that group who acts as a go-between the board
Right.
and the community that we serve, okay? To hear the problems, bring them to the board, and take them back, solutions back. Somebody who was amongst that group.
Do you have any recommendations?
Well, I mean, set up a process, either where they apply, or where they're voted on. A process needs to be set up as to how that person comes here and sits in that seat as the board liaison to the residents. Process needs to be set up.
I remember like last time we had Ms. Nash as a liaison, and everybody else that was on board held a position. Especially when we had one main board at the time, but if we had our vice president, president, everything, just like the regular boards now.
But I'm saying some process has to be set up, whether
Yeah.
you do it by name adoption, whether you do it by voting, that process needs to be defined. As to who's gonna come in and sit at the table.
That's all I have.
That's good. No more questions? All right, Gorman, you up.
Ms. Nancy didn't have anything. I had.
Just ignore it, you just.
Oh, sorry about that, brother.
That's all
Then.
right. I just read it.
He
Sorry,
stepped right in there.
sorry about that.
He stepped
I
right
had
into there.
one question.
I didn't have my glasses on.
Yeah. As far as our audit is concerned, and the corrective action that is listed in there, do we get updates on where we stand? You know, if it's been accomplished, when it's been accomplished, and that sort of thing?
I can give you,
You
I
will?
can give you
Okay.
that.
And I think that needs.
To be a part of it.
Yeah, be a part of your report. that-
Well, to piggyback on what Commissioner Lindsay
Yeah.
said, Mr. Durant, who's responsible for putting those corrective actions and internal controls in? Who's responsible?
The department that is talking about.
That's been tagged. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make the public perfectly clear
Yeah.
that when the audits come down and those audit findings come, it's not the board
Right, that's.
that does it.
Yeah,
That does that.
Yeah.
That's up to each department.
That's right.
Now, we may have some oversight and questions as to how it's gonna happen, but we don't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we'd like an update on that it is being done and addressed. No further questions.
Sounds good? Gorman, you up? Anybody from Gorman?
Everybody. Chairman Lowe, this is Brian Swanton.
Hey, Mr. Swanton, how you doing today?
I am great, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good, we have John Laerdal from our development team on as well to talk about Sunset Terrace, and we have Sonia Drosky with our management team. So I think we typically at these meetings just give you a quick update on Sunset Terrace first, and then answer any questions that you guys have related to the towers. Does that sound like
Yes, sir.
a good way to
Sounds
go?
good.
Okay. So Sunset Terrace is moving along very, very well. We are working on submitting what's called our concept meeting package to HUD. And once that package goes in, it has a certain number of deliverables. Once that package goes in, HUD will set up our concept call, which is sort of our kickoff call with HUD. And then we typically would have regular standing calls with them, with the transaction manager as we lead to a closing. We're still trying to keep on track to close the transaction by the end of the year. It's going to be tight, but we're working hard at getting that done. With construction hopefully starting after the holidays in January. We didn't want to disrupt the residents during the holidays with moving and construction activity and all that sort of thing. So we hope to submit that package next week. Should have our concept call a couple of weeks after that. So hopefully, around the 1st of August, first couple of weeks of August. And, we're just going to keep down the path. We're finalizing the architectural package as we speak to go out to bid to the subcontractor base. And we're feeling pretty good. We had a great resident meeting, a couple of resident meetings about 30 days ago, one at 10 in the morning, one at 6 at night. Those were very well attended. Residents asked a lot of great questions, and we felt really good about that. There was some sort of frustration around how long it's taken, just so you're all aware. That was expressed, and some skepticism too about, are we really moving forward this time? And so, we had to give the residents some background on what took place at our meetings with the state. We talked about the mayor getting involved. We talked about the governor getting involved. We talked about finally getting that board approval at the state level. And that's sort of the issue that was preventing us from moving forward. So we sort of did a mea culpa and apologized for, the year of battling that we had to do behind the scenes. But, assured them that we are moving forward now, and we have the green light to do so. So they're very excited about that. And, but anyway, those meetings went really well, and happy to answer any questions on Sunset Terrace.
Well, Mr. Swinton, are you aware that per the Director of Recapitalization that a board member or board is involved in that conceptual call?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you say that one more time?
So are you aware that the board has to be involved in that conceptual call based
Oh,
upon?
yeah, no, that's fine. You and I had connected about you wanting to be on calls like that, so we'll absolutely include you in that call when it gets scheduled by HUD. HUD sets the schedule, they tell us when it's gonna be, so we'll inform you right away and your staff, because we'd like to have multiple MHA staff on board listening in on that call.
Sounds good.
Can you elaborate, Mr. Swinton, on the award from ADVA and some of the requirements that ADVA is inserting as a part of that award?
Well, and John, please let me know if I'm speaking out of turn here at all, but they're really, they passed the approval simply contingent on the final bond documents that the lawyers will draft up over the coming months. They didn't really put any specific limitations on our approval. The big focus obviously was cost and cost per unit. And there's 2 or 3 board members that really have a hard time with these RAD transactions and the cost per unit that come with them. And, you know, we did our best job of educating them. We brought in HUD headquarters staff to have a whole seminar with them on one day to talk about RAD and how these deals work and so forth and so on. But these particular board members just could not get over that hump. So they're going to pay very close attention to our cost per unit as we go through this process. But other than that, they didn't put any specific limitations, requirements, or restrictions on us with the board approval.
I guess what I'm referring to, I think I read somewhere as part of this, if Gorman defaults, ADVA wants the property. So that was a piece that we did not recognize in past agreements with ADVA, and wondered if we saw something that we didn't see or shouldn't have seen, or if that's a misinterpretation.
John, are you aware of what they might be referring to? Because I'm not really tracking that.
No, I'm not aware of anything like that as far as ADVA getting the property, because ADVA themselves would not be a part of the ownership structure at all.
Yeah, but it was in the agreement though. I can send you that verbiage.
Yeah, if you could send me what you're looking at, we're not following what we're seeing. But would certainly be, I haven't seen anything along those lines from ADVA. We don't have any written agreements with ADVA in place just yet, so.
A lot of strange things came out of ADVA this time, so.
Yeah, Lordy.
So forgive us for paying closer attention to ADVA.
Well, is that because they're getting ready to do a bond, and they're trying to infer that because it is a bond and state money and not federal money, that they can make that reach?
Yeah, I mean, they are issuing bonds. They are providing gap funding to the project. But we're really honestly not far enough along to have any of those levels of discussions in terms of legal documents yet. So I'd be curious what you're looking at.
Okay.
If you could send that over to us, we'll take a look at it and give you an interpretation.
Will do.
As you heard earlier as part of our discussion, we're a little bit concerned about the grievance procedure going on with our residents in the towers. And we're also a little bit concerned about whether or not there are any public postings of tenant rights and knowledge of how to access the grievance procedure. So maybe you or your staff can give us some information pertaining to whether there are some postings in some public places throughout the towers where residents can readily see what tenant rights are and how to access the grievance procedure.
Sure, so I'll turn that over to Sonia Grosky, who will address the grievance procedure in our posting policy. Sonia, are you with us still? Or maybe on mute?
No.
You may have to.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There you go.
We can hear you.
Okay. So each year, the residents get a copy of the grievance procedure in their lease packet. And if they come down to the office and have have agreements or want to hear from a hearing officer, we will give them a copy of that for their use. And we do talk them through that policy, so they understand their rights. There's two sides of it. There's a policy on our side, and then there's a policy that is down at MHA. So they would get two hearings.
And Sonia, I think the question was, do we post that grievance procedure in place in the powers now? Or if not, can we do that?
And
Yeah.
and a list of tenant rights.
Absolutely, we can. We can absolutely post that. We've just put up some new bulletin boards. We can get that posted.
So let me understand this. One grievance process is for the building. And the other grievance process with MHA is for Section 8. And am I misinterpreting that?
No, so like if a particular person, say, their subsidy is canceled, okay? So we let them know that their subsidy's been canceled. They probably already got a letter from MHA too. So they're gonna come to us and they wanna appeal that process. So first they will meet with Section 8 to see if their Section 8 can be reinstated. And then they will come and meet with us and let us know that their Section 8 has been reinstated, they're all in good standings, and we're good to sign a new lease with them.
But see, I have a problem with that because see, there could be some potential time delay. Using the illustration that you just provided, why wouldn't that individual file a grievance with MHA instead of with Gorman? Just using the illustration you just provided.
Sorry, I can't hear you very good.
Why would Gorman provide a grievance procedure on the illustration you just provided? Why wouldn't that information be told to that tenant that they could apply directly to MHA for a grievance procedure?
Well, when MHA sent them that initial letter, letting them know that their subsidy has been canceled because they didn't recertify, that is part of the letter that they receive, that they can go to MHA for, to appeal that process.
Yeah, because you gotta understand, there's the way this is structured is a project-based voucher setup as opposed to project-based rental assistance. We're not managing the Section 8 process, MHA is.
Correct.
In a PBRA setting, which, about half of RAD transactions are PBRA and about half are PBB. In a PBRA setting, we manage the subsidy process on site. In this case, it's managed by MHA and then referral sent over. So a grievance with Gorman would be, and Sonia, correct me if I'm wrong here, but would be more related to tenant behavior or, eviction notice due to, non-compliance with lease terms, those sorts of things. Anything subsidy related would really have to be handled by MHA because we don't handle that at Gorman on our side.
Well, I just want to make sure that, those tenants have clarity because if there's some convolution here, just imagine what the tenant is thinking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would ask also, Sonia, one of the things that we had talked about, and we've talked about several times since Gorman taking over the towers, and that has to do with other services, resource services for the tenants. We know that there are some life changes that our tenants are taking or going through. So what support services are there? Whether it's health, mental health, or just any other resources. I know that Asario at one time was trying to do some of that because a lot of the grievances that we hear in the community has to do with individuals who have other things going on with them. And it should be recognizable in the building, rather than eviction being the only thing that we come as a remedy with. So I'm asking what resources, because there was a commitment that we were going to have additional resources in there for the residents. So can you tell me, are they being provided and what types of service? And I think we even had this conversation with Dan at one time. We've had a fair over there, we've had all kinds of things. So I not only are they being provided, but what is the consistency of them being provided?
So we have a full-time on-site resident service coordinator, and she has a background in social work. She has connected with several of the agencies in Little Rock, and when they come to see her for anywhere from mental health concerns to alcoholism to a need for food, furniture, she connects them with agencies. She helps them make phone calls. She helps get them appointments. We have started to invite service providers into the building to give health talks, give wellness talks. So we are really connecting now that COVID's in the rearview mirror with a lot of different agencies to start coming back to the building and talking to our residents and helping them with their issues. But we do have a full-time service coordinator on staff that works very closely with the residents. And like I said, she has a very extensive background in social work.
That was a concern in the matter that that we brought to your attention. Even the city director that's involved with that client recognizes that there is some issues there, and he has shared with her that he is on a type of medication. So we just want to make sure that all those things are being noted as we go through these processes with the residents.
Sonia, do you know how many veterans are at each one of our towers?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I could get you that number.
Okay.
I will get it out in an email to you of how many veterans are at each tower.
Okay, appreciate it.
Sure.
Mrs. Swanton, so I hear that we probably won't break ground at Sunset Terrace until after the holidays in January. And that, so in this timeline, when are we doing the contractors fair?
John, do you have the project schedule? I'm not sure if we mapped out a specific date for the contractor event. Is that in our
Yeah, we don't have a specific date yet, but just generally it's somewhere like 90 days before project starts. So I know Kent just generally is thinking sometime this fall right now, but no specific dates have been thrown out yet.
Is there someone at MHA you'd like us to coordinate closely with on that?
We have been coordinating that effort through our design group, because the good news is they do somewhat of a better job than we do in making sure that information is penetrated into the community. And that effort has been coordinated with our procurement staff. But in the past, we have asked design group to take the lead on that, because they have their arms are longer in reaching out to the community so no one is lost, or that there's more opportunity created. And of course, that effort is coordinated through our procurement department within MHA.
Okay. Who is our point of contact then with procurement? I'd like to be sure that they're aware when we launch that event.
It is Jada Johnson is in our procurement department, and it's Myron Jackson at Design Group.
Got it.
Yeah, we've had calls with design group. Brian and Kent has been on all of those, so he knows who the contacts are.
Excellent. Okay.
Any more questions? No more questions, Mr. Swanton. We appreciate the update.
Okay, just reach out anytime if you have further questions.
Yes, sir, will do. Have a good one.
Okay, you too.
I tech.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is Bogdan
Hey, Mr. Boggins.
Hello. We have from ITEX today Miranda Sprague, Michelle Harder, Paula Watts, and the new addition to the development team, Kenny Ball. Kenny Ball, take a bow. We are pretty much on a similar track with the development. We have started uploading the financing plan to the HUD resource desk. Few questions came up, which we have addressed them. Hopefully we can wrap that up by the end of this week. And then we'll be waiting for setting up the concept call. It's noted that we'll make sure the board is aware of the date and the time so that we can jointly attend the call. Once that happens, concurrently, I understand that Chairman Lowe, you signed the extension for the existing loan for 6 months.
Correction. I didn't sign it. Mr. Delaney signed it.
Okay, thank you for the correction. That was signed. The extension documents should arrive at MHA shortly, and hopefully we can put that extension to rest. There would be extension fee, of course, but that would take us till December. We have told HUD that we have a short fuse, and they are trying to accommodate us. We must close by December 9th, or whatever the documents will indicate the maturity date to be, but 6 months will take us till then. We expect to get our concept call in August as well, and then we'll go from there. We are ready to start as soon as HUD gives the approval. We are continuing with lenders and investors moving forward with the documentation. We are very close to the end on that front, so everything is fine. There were a couple of issues that we have historically raised with staff, and I think I brought it up at least once on the board meeting on the financing of the projects that you're managing. On one hand, we are trying to deal with the issues as best as we can. On the other hand, there is a shortage of funds coming into the project, partially because HUD is undercutting the payments to the projects, and that results in a shortfall of money to properly manage the projects. ITEX has fronted almost $500,000 on the MH1 and MH2 to basically maintain as best as we can, but a decision needs to be made.
We're having a senior moment here.
How about that, y'all?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Decision needs to be made by the board to support the project so that the services can be maintained as best as they could. We have been talking about this for over a year now, not longer, but we haven't seen any action yet. So I defer to Paula to explain further as to what the issues are. I do apologize that last week we had some email exchanges. Apparently, there was an issue with one of the tenants at the homes at Granite Mountain that person who was supposed to be on site, the manager was dealing with the certification issues, but the person who was supposed to be in the office just didn't show up, and that was unfortunate that happened at the time.
Hello, hello, hello.
I just saw her unmuting her phone. Paul, are you there?
Can't hear.
Paul, I can't hear you.
There you go.
No.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, how are you?
Oh,
I guess the main problem that I see, and I think everyone can see at both sides, the Granite and the Madison, is first of all, occupancy. You know, we can occupy units, hopefully we can collect rent. When I took over in July of 2019, Madison Heights had aged receivables of over $109,000 of uncollected rent, which we've been trying to, of course, repair and try to collect. I don't know if the board is aware that we ended up having 42 vacancies that were unreported at the time we took over. And we started knocking on doors trying to collect rent. Walking units, we discovered units that were actually not occupied, which created a large vacancy for the site. We did try to collect rent by February of this past year, 2020, I'm sorry. We ended up with 24 evictions that needed to be collected on for unpaid rent. COVID kicked in and then we were unable to collect rent there, again creating a hardship financially. Currently, we do have outstanding about $98,000 in uncollectible rent at Madison. I'm sorry. Yes, $98,000 as uncollected rent at Madison Heights. Because of the moratorium, 18 of those tenants that we cannot evict have a collection amount of $68,000. That's only 18 tenants. That if we had the capability, of course, getting out of the property by eviction, you know, we generate income, but we can try and lease up. So with that said, being that we don't have the income or the resources to buy the materials, the vendors, to get these units ready to reoccupy, that has been an impediment for both sides. In addition to that, we also had waitlist impediments that we occurred once we took over the property. When we took over Madison, it had 7,152 applicants on the wait list as old as 2001. So as we were trying to pull urge to hopefully rectify that situation, at Granite on the wait list was 1,804 people on the applicants on the wait list as old as 2014. So we not only had a deficiency in income and occupancy, our wait list is outdated. And because of all of these factors, the property just hasn't recovered as quickly as we like, on top of COVID, you know, not being able to maintain work orders, only doing emergency work orders, closing the offices. So the properties do need some love and some help and support, and that's what we're asking for at this point.
how's she planning on addressing that?
Well, you know, we've heard what we've been hearing for the last 9 months. We've been talking about purging the list since last year. And so we knew that was a problem. We knew the lease-up was a problem. And what I'm hearing, Botkin, is there's an overall management problem of the property. When I hear that there is problem collecting rent, and there are all sorts of programs on the ground in Little Rock, Arkansas to assist residents, and you have to wonder if our offices were open, and that's a major stickler for us, that people want to try to run the property from Houston and Port Arthur, which is totally unacceptable to this board. You can't make slumlords out of us because of obvious management problems within ITEX, because of finance problems within ITEX. We cannot have the residents of our property having issues with property that impact their health, their security, or their essential quality of life. We're just not going to deal with that one. All of what Paula said have been on your plate for well, really almost a year of discussion and documentation that the board has will prove that. When we now got complaints that go to the mayor's office on a daily basis, we've got complaints coming into our offices on a daily basis, and now these complaints are coming in to individual directors. That's unacceptable. Again, the breakdown in management or whatever's happening in the company cannot impact how we do business in Little Rock, Arkansas. So there has to be a remedy to this. The board has a resolution that it's going to consider today as a part of how we remedy this situation, because we can't continue in this mode. There is parts of the contract that deals with maintenance and repair, that deals with services that should be provided that have been woefully not taken care of. So these properties, while your contract was signed with MHA, those properties fall under CAHC. And as the president of CAHC, we have to speak to the problem. So we're going to speak to MHA in the resolution that is to be considered by this board of a 30-day notice to terminate, in order that we get our folk what they need in our housing projects. This should have been considered, we've heard, we'll look into it. And it goes further than just the maintenance on our property. It also deals with the administration part. Within the agency, we've had difficulty even getting the reports in a timely fashion that has caused us hits on the audits. And I think we did that 2 years in a row. So there are many factions of the contract that have not been met that we see in the contract we're given reason for cause or not for cause. And in the statute for cause, we have to notify you and give you 30 days to find some type of cure for that issue of what we're seeing is a overwhelming neglect of our properties. Like I said, I'm surprised the mayor didn't have somebody on this call to see what we are doing about this issue, because he's almost had to dedicate staff to hear what our people are complaining about. This just can't go on at this level. And then there's a 6-month extension that is supposed to be considered. They can't do another 60 days. I'm concerned that we're waiting 30 days before they'll get help. And I don't want MHA to get into a problem of trying to respond to the issues of Madison Heights or Homes at Granite Mountain, because there is a recognizable contract in place. And that recognizable contract has designation of those things you are to provide as a part of that contract. So to say the least, I'm not happy. And I don't think any member of the board is happy with the fact that we've been having this conversation. We understand air conditioners are now down. In several of our residents. And I mean, we're talking about seniors and folks with children, and we're talking about some of the hottest days of summer are right here. I mean, I can't imagine having people who don't, and we've had issues of people not having heating, people paying for the repair of their air conditioners themselves, and the list goes on and on and on and on, and it is totally justifiable that we take these steps. Like I said, we can't become slumlords because of what's going on in the internal workings of your company. And when I'm hearing that you're unable to collect rent, that may have something to do with you not having people in our offices and on our property on a daily basis. Qualified folk that would be able to make those inroads and even providing assistance to people to getting access to the programs that are out there that would assist with rent. That's not taking place because for the most part, here in the last meeting, folks were walking off of Madison Heights. We know that even with the lady that did show up for work out at Homes at Granite Mountain, the response when we sent the email that the lady wasn't gonna get there until sometime this week. That was last week. I mean,
On and on.
on and on, on and on. The quality of life for our residents requires a better level of service than what we're getting.
Commissioner Anthony, I hear a lot of statement, a lot of generalization. Somehow the work has been done, it's not being mentioned, and there are a few instances that there are problems is being raised. Of course, it is your prerogative if you want to go with different manager, that's fine. We would be happy to, because we are struggling to make the ends meet and make these projects work. Please note, we are managing the property. We are not the owners of the property. You as owner of the property, you also need to pay attention as to what is lacking, and we have brought it to your attention over a year ago about the funding issues, about the problems there. And we have not received.
Don't let me go there.
No.
No,
Don't let me go there.
no, that's not
Wait,
quite.
maybe it's
that-
not, no.
Go ahead.
Bob, 'cause you all are getting the rent, fees, and you trying to say that befalls on us
No.
to manage the property when we hired you all to do it?
No, I'm not saying that, Chairman Lowe. I'm not saying that you need to manage the property. As a property owner, there are problems with the cash flow of the project. You as an owner need to help with making sure the money flows.
No, that ain't way the contract read.
Not the contract.
No,
The
no.
other part of
I read
that,
the
Bakken,
contract.
had your folk, had you had trained individuals on our property, we've dealt with, within MHA, the issue of collecting rent.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from $49,000 to $50,000 of uncollected revenue to zero. And it was because the folk who were skilled and tasked, along with the legal services that was in place, took care of that. You cannot do that from Port Arthur or from Houston. That is the biggest problem we got with this. You cannot run our property from Texas. The fact that there is no one, and you know who I am, I'm going to the property.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been to the property, and I've lodged my complaints about what I see when I go to the property. And you've heard that for months, that the issues of the property are real. They are not something that can be managed by the board. What you said to us is, I'll look into it. And we never got a response on most of the issues. When we talked about managers being on the ground, your commitment was, we're gonna bring these people to Port Arthur and we're gonna train them. And one of the things about it, they need to be low-income tax credit certified. We've heard nothing about that. We've had numerous conversations that are well documented in our minutes and on our Zooms and everything else that we keep our information on. So no, it is not our fault. We're not gonna take that one.
No.
We're going to say that you had a contract, and that contract has been definitely breached with the failure to keep maintenance and repairs where it was, and even to work with us, because this is the first time we're hearing about how broke you are, or how strange you are, and why this is not happening. Now, if you talk to someone, it never got to the board, which is the final authority to be able to respond to it. So we're just saying, and when I hear that you're this far and not collecting rent, that's a horror story.
We got a problem.
Commissioner Anthony, 6 months ago,
Okay.
in the board meeting or one of the meetings, I told you specifically that we have fronted $500,000 because project doesn't have cash.
Yeah.
You were surprised that we have fronted it, and you were appreciative that we have fronted that cash.
But we have no proof of it. You know, we heard.
Even at that
Wait a
ain't our
minute.
responsibility.
Well, even in you dealing with the property, if you're not collecting the rent, something says you don't get paid.
You don't get paid.
Now, what we've also complained about is lease up. And the manner in which lease up is not being done in market rate. I don't think we've had a clear explanation about that since we've been talking about this.
We have not had.
We've had people, there's no reason why Little Rock should have a homeless problem when people are trying to even lease up at Madison Heights under market rate, not asking for any subsidies.
None.
And we've never got a clear answer on what's happening even on that.
That's because tenants, when they know that they are going to be relocated in 3 months, they're not signing new leases for 3 months and then be relocated. That's the major issue with the lease up. Regardless, it is your prerogative.
Okay, thank you.
Or if you're not happy, that's, telling you that we are not happy with the situation either.
But Bobkins, are you aware, and many of us at this table are, that the state has over $170 million for
73.
rent assistance? And that Pulaski County has over 70 million for rent assistance? Are you aware?
We've talked about it.
Sounds like a.
We've talked about it.
I'm just asking.
I can tell you, I was aware in April that assistance was available. I flew down to Arkansas myself, handed out flyers. The time we logged on the day that it came open, Pulaski County, the amount they were giving was already gone. We had tenants ready to apply.
Paula, right now,
You're not
there
here.
is, Pulaski County is doing such a bang-up job until they moved into another building to be able to meet the needs of our folk. Had we known you were in town, we'd have done whatever we could have to assist you to make sure that our folk would have got some type of assistance. But that was that money. They have new money.
New money, thank you.
New money that is in the coffers for people to apply for. They're taking as many as 5,000 applications a day to meet the needs.
We did try to reach out to tenants, and we made appointments with them to come in, and like I said, that day we logged in, we were there ready. It already, you click on the little county location of y'all, it's been already out of funds. We did try to assist
Did
tenants.
you check with the state?
Okay.
And then there's DHS in the state of Arkansas. There are all kinds of pools, and this is why we've talked about resources and services for months that are there for our tenants. But you're right, we're not happy, you're not happy, so again, we will take a look at the resolution today and go forward as to what the next steps will be.
Okay, just, we'll send an invoice for monies we have spent, just reimburse us and do whatever you wish.
That ain't part of the contract. That ain't part of the contract.
We'll take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take a look at it, and we will do our due diligence in making sure that we are applicable with what needs to
What we
take
do.
place.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
I guess he wants to talk about the development, which I think we need to also talk about the development
We'll go
deal.
from here, yeah.
The red deal.
Mm-hmm.
I already explained where we are with that. Do you have
Yeah,
any
but
questions?
you need to hear from us. You need to hear from us and where we are with it.
Okay?
That property belongs to CAAC. And if you don't believe it, I got a letter here from Director Davis who said so.
Well, and again, as a part of CAHC,
Never
there
had-
has been conversations that should have taken place with us that didn't. And what I've seen from this entire project is increasing debt for the agency and is decreasing income for the agency. And let me be specific, because I don't want you to think that we haven't looked into this and that we're in the dark on this project. When you decided, those at the table decided that you wanted to change the implementality of what CAHC does. You created a $700,000 debt and the possibility of having another nonprofit come to the table. First of all, CACH is not committed to changing its instrumentality because of the impact that it has for us to regain our property at the end of whatever time that this board agrees with that we will have first right of purchase. CACH does not feel that our instrumentality should be changed to accommodate the developer. We have always been a back-end instrument, and that's where CAAC chooses to stay. We do not choose to be a financing partner in this deal.
Never have been.
CACH is that nonprofit. Now, the way this deal should have played out, knowing that you didn't have a pure RAD deal, because RAD is defined as a relationship between a developer and a housing authority that has housing units to be redeveloped or rehabbed.
Right.
MHA did not meet that criteria. That property existed over in CAHC.
They know them.
The other part of that, and it took us 6 months of arguing even internally to get people to read the same paperwork that HUD read and said, okay, board, you're correct. Had this deal been done, which we think and were never asked appropriately,
Correct.
MHA and CAHC can deal all day long, but CAHC is not gonna deal with the developer. MHA could have very easily approached CAHC and says, will you convey that property back over to MHA to be able to make this a RAD deal by RAD definition?
Correct.
And CACH would have possibly considered that and also transferred the debt that is attached to those properties, which in a whole lot of ways would have been a win-win for MHA, except they'd have got some more debt, a win-win for our clients, and a win-win for you as the developer, because now you really have a RAD deal.
Yep.
That did not happen. We went all the way around the mulberry bush, down past the Dairy Queen, across the schoolyard, jumped the pond 3 times, going and coming, and then came back to want to talk to us about creating more debt. We cannot create more debt in this deal.
And we only get
CACH is not willing to give up its back-end instrumentality in an effort to regain its property after the ink dries.
35% of the development fees? Come on
And
now.
the development fees.
Come on now.
Yeah, it has to be, this deal has to be looked at and looked at closely. And so much of the conversation that is going on, other people have been making a decision. I don't know what about final authority folks didn't understand. Final authority rests rules at the table. Not working this deal for the benefit of the developer. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Answer a question, and this is also illegal. Monies that are left in the deal, once the deal is over and construction is finished, what happens to that money?
We don't get it.
Stays with the developer.
The developer gets it. We don't
We
get it.
even question what is the $6.5 million versus the $9 million.
And that's a question that needs to be answered. What exactly do we owe Walker Dunlap? Is it 6.5 or 9 million?
And again, increasing the debt on the housing authority. We got a bunch of questions before there's any ink signing here.
Because we were told at one point, oh, y'all got to pay Walker Dunlap 9 million. Later conversation, oh, it's only 6.5. So which is it?
And we are doing a rehab, not a new construction. We are concerned about all of the costs and why it was so, the argument that went on about MHA can do this and MHA can do this with CAHC, we are a separate, independent, nonprofit. MHA does not have 2 pots of money that it operates from, not under any statute in the state of Arkansas. Therefore, it does not have 2 inventories of property that it can pull from. So what I'm saying to you is that there are still discussions to be had now that the chairman of MHA is at the table, because there's so much conversation we've never had. We know that there's been some resolutions that were rushed through that had nothing to do with us assigning CAAC to anything. It was just assumed, even in documentation that we got just yesterday. The documentation from Coates Roads was wanting to designate who can sign off on CAAC. That's a board decision, not a decision for the developer or the finance team. This is a deal that involves the board, and we're just stepping up to the plate to say that this deal on its face, which the MDA did not include CAAC in the first place, it was a deal between MHA and ITEX, which is the way fundamentally it should work. Not the creation of another nonprofit organization that needs 21%, or there's a $700,000 expense that goes into that. it is not the deal that is a good deal for us. So we're gonna require some additional negotiation and some additional conversations that needs to go on with the board at the table, so that the interests of these agencies are taken into consideration.
Well, Commissioner Anthony, I'll be happy to come over there and explain in detail what it is. The problem we have, I guess, for over 5 years, we have been dealing the executive director of MHA representing the project to us and discussing points with us as an authorized entity or individual to work with us on these deals. Every step that we have taken, every direction that we have taken, we have gotten approval from then executive director of MHA, representing that they have the authority to tell us, and they, I don't suppose any executive director would decide anything without the board approval. That's implicit. And all the agreements that ultimately will have to be signed will have to be vetted by your council, by property council, and the board, respective boards that are involved. I myself worked for Houston Housing Authority for 7.5 years. I have done a lot of developments for Houston Housing Authority. Every step of the way, the board had to approve everything. We also had the development entity, which was doing the developments just like CANC. Everything that was done in there, I know for a fact, because I did it, we made sure that was approved by both boards and went forward. We are not dismissing CANC as an entity. We understand that CANC and MHA, both boards have the authority to approve. But when the executive director talks to us, works with us, approves what we do, and takes the information we provide them.
Don't let me go there.
Yeah.
Come back and
Already
tell us
know.
yes, we agree and go
Already
forward.
Don't let me go there.
As far as we are concerned, it was with full compliance with the internal workings of MHA and CANC.
Don't let me go
Because
there. Don't let me
What
go
we're sharing with you today, Bakken, is that was not the case.
Yeah.
And there are all 5 members of here, four of which is members of CAAC, and if Jada Johnson is on, then all the members of CAAC is online. And there is not a smidget of documentation of where those conversations have been held. Did we get some rush-through resolutions? Absolutely. And we're going back to re-examine them and see legally the rescinding of the vote on those, because it was not handled properly. We shared with you. Now, let me go back so we get you to remember that the board objected with you when you put the first $25,000 into the deal and put CAAC's name next to it.
Right.
I said to you,
Where'd that
why,
come from?
where did that come from? Because we are not a front-end instrumentality. We are only in the deal once the ink is dry. The other part of that is that 2 days later, the question was asked, because sometimes people just don't believe what the board says. It was asked of some folks in Texas. The response came back to us, yes, you guys are right. You are a back-end instrumentality. You are not on the front end. But however we operate, it is not a decision for the developer, the finance team. It is a decision that the board makes, how they're going to be or not be in the deal. I go back to simple. This deal was so simple until anybody walking off the street should have been able to see. You didn't have property in the deal to begin with.
You didn't.
CACH had property. You didn't. While people were negating what we were saying to them, they rolled along
Like that.
just like we weren't talking to them, okay? When we, the board, went to HUD, RAD, Redevelopment Group, We went after requesting staff to go on our behalf. We went to get a status of where this deal was. They came back with the same answer we already had. The property belongs to CAHC.
We'll provide you a copy.
A, B, and C.
We'll provide you
A
copy.
and C can deal. C is not gonna deal with B. A and C can deal all day long, and we not mess up our instrumentality in the deal. MHA can negotiate with CAHC to convey that property, just simply transfer the property back to them with all of the debt. And then you got a pure deal.
You got a deal.
The other part of that is that there has to be some consideration and something attractive given to MHA for them to do that, because they are getting some debt back. And so you're going to have to look at the structure of those development fees. So it's a workable, even though we got some problems on the property management side that has to be resolved. In order to say to us, we've got confidence in your capacity to do the job and be a part of RAD even after the deal is done, because you gotta understand you've got some confidence broken here with how and what's taking place with our properties now. So there has to be some shaking of hands and some negotiation going on here that we are not there yet. So please come down, and please don't misunderstand that it's not about an understanding. We disagree, and there's a difference between the two. Whether people disagree with you or whether there is a pure misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, we just don't agree with what's being done. But we welcome you to Little Rock, welcome you to sit down with CAHC and MHA to see how we can hammer this out. We have to tell you that in 2018, we got an OIG based on how the deal was done.
2019.
And one of the biggest problems that the OIG cited was the lack of communications between staff and the board. Effective.
It was called by the field office. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then glad Tony's on here because he has a copy of it, because they got hit too. But the bottom line was that there wasn't enough communication from staff to the board.
Left out the whole way.
And it has
See,
not,
that's why I
and it
don't-
didn't
I
get
don't wanna
changed
go down
during
the-
this situation.
I don't wanna go down the road with prior EDs. Yeah. Cause I'm gonna say something.
No, don't do that.
I'm gonna say something that.
You'll go to
that-
jail.
No, I'll stand on the truth every day, okay?
You're good. But we know that there's been some issues here as we've tried
There's some
to,
issues with them prior EDs, okay?
well, and it didn't get better. So now we're saying, now before we go to HUD, we don't want them to think that we invest in bubble gum and chicken wire
No.
to hold a deal together, that we know exactly what we're doing when we send them a deal.
Yes, sir.
So we welcome you to Little Rock, earliest convenience, and let's sit down and hammer this thing out to where it's profitable to everybody, and it makes sense without a lot of this stuff that is built into this deal now.
Any questions?
All right, I'll make plans to come over and discuss it. It is what it is, as far as we are concerned. And, we can get on the same page.
Looking forward to seeing you back.
Is there anything further? Well, we appreciate the discussion, Mr. Hopkins,
Keep it moving.
and have a good one.
Thank you.
The design group, you all on the line? Hello?
I don't see him.
Yo. Going once,
No one from design group is online.
going twice. Move it right along.
Okay.
You have before you 5 resolutions. Mr. Delaney.
These resolutions are authorizing the interim executive directors to cancel the contractual agreement for property management services with ITEX. The 5 contracts are Madison Heights 1, 2, and 3, Homes and Granite Mountain, and Homes and Granite Mountain Senior.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
The contract in its termination for cause requires the 30-day notice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying, should these resolutions read 30-day notice to terminate?
Well, I think it does.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. Where is it?
You mentioned in your discussion.
Yeah, we mentioned in the discussion.
And I've not seen the contracts, but you mentioned, in your discussion, an opportunity for, cure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have we got a copy of the contract available?
Mm-hmm. I'll forward it to you.
He wants to look at it now.
Yeah, I'd like to look at it
Like-
before the board votes.
Because it does say, it does say he has
Because
to.
there may need to be some massaging of the language in this resolution, depending on the
That's my
language in
point,
the
that's my
contract.
point. Because it does say, and my gut feeling, and we hadn't got it resolved in almost a year. But it does
Right,
say,
but
yeah, but it
and-
does say,
yeah,
it
you're-
does say.
You're absolutely right about that, but
Yeah, it
I
does
want
say-
this, I
That's
want
why
this,
I'm saying.
this to be,
Yeah, would you please?
this break to be as clean as.
Yeah,
as
see,
possible.
I don't see the 30-day notice
Well, it does-
in the resolution.
It says,
30 days.
whereas MHA has determined the cancellation shall be in effect beginning whatever date of
No,
July.
no, I mean to put them on notice.
Yeah, it's
That
30-day
wouldn't it-
notice,
Nuh-uh,
with-
nuh-uh,
because
nuh-uh,
it's a
nuh-uh.
for
That
cause.
ain't, to me,
Yes.
that ain't valid enough.
Would-
We need to explicitly say, we're giving you 30-day notice to
You should say
potentially.
what the contract
Yeah,
says.
to cancel your contract. And see, that's not in these resolutions.
No, so we can't touch them, we get hit in the head.
And to go print out the copy?
Yes,
Okay.
so I
We
would
can move
ask
on
that
and
we,
then,
I ask that we table these until the language is correct and.
how long?
Until
next-
Tuesday.
This Tuesday?
If you have to have a special meeting.
Yeah.
Until, I'm very serious.
I know.
In order to get the language correct. Because the CAAC has work to do to make sure we're prepared, in the event that there is no change in condition in 30 days.
Okay.
And there also has to be a review of whatever documentation that they're going to, and that's a major transition.
I'm sure that that contract, and again, I hadn't seen it, and I may be talking out of turn, with respect to cure. I'm
But
envisioning that there's some provision in that contract that obligates you all to formally put ITEX on notice of what needs to be cured, and that's why I want to make sure that we're.
Right. That's why I was questioning the resolution language, because if we're doing it for cause, it's 30 days and
be
it does speak
specific.
to cure.
Yeah, but how you go?
I got it.
You got
got
9
it.
folks in this heat who don't have no air conditioning. You got folks paying out of pocket
To get stuff repaired.
to get stuff repaired.
You got the
Now, if
mayor's
you look at
office
the
getting calls.
contract, that damn it, you get in the fees, you get in the rent. Come on now.
Well,
they
well,
said
and
I mean, that's just like telling a teenager you can't manage your money. So I'm gonna take it over for you.
but it's more than that. It went to the administration issues that we had, with just getting the information pertaining to, the audits and everything else that we got tagged on.
Correct?
It was just poor management, and you cannot do here from there.
No, we're not gonna let our tenants
Yeah.
magnify us as a slumlord.
But if you look at that portion, and all the contracts read exactly alike.
Exactly the same.
Y'all can go ahead. I mean, I'm not
Well,
prepared
like I
to
said,
opine on.
we all recognize that there's something more that needs to be in these resolutions. So we will table them. My motion is to table all of the resolutions pertaining to the property management contract, until a special meeting is called to review the new language and the.
You know what I'm gonna ask, right?
I know.
You made a motion.
July 20th.
Yeah, Tuesday's the 20th.
Okay, till July 20th.
Does that give you enough time?
Ms. Higgins, does that give you enough time?
Yeah, I'll be ready tomorrow. Plenty of time.
Got a motion on the floor.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that these resolutions be tabled until July the 20th. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
What time?
We can decide that.
11:30.
Yeah, we can decide that.
Are you in town?
Oh, no, but I can be there.
I mean, if we need to do it later in the afternoon to make it
Yeah,
easy
we
for you
can,
to get here.
yeah, we can.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Will 2 o'clock make you happy?
Yes, I can be there by 2.
Okay,
Sounds good.
then 2 o'clock is that time.
So on the 20th?
On the
Out of there, okay. Let it be noted, it's in our public notice that there will be a special call meeting on the 20th of July at 2 p.m. Anything else?
Executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Been moved and probably second that we go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, none.
Call me,
We're in executive session.
call me, Brandon.